As a front three, Manchester City in this first half will be playing from left to right as we look here on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. And Newcastle United, well, they made the 9 changes for the FA Cup tie against Birmingham City last weekend, but if you go back to the League Cup semi-final, second leg against Arsenal, it's just the one change from that, and that means that Willock is the one who comes in for the injured Botman, and they revert to that back four. So crucially, Dubravka is in goal, which means that form and fitness permitting, he now will be in line to be the number one goalkeeper for the League Cup final that Chris Sutton has mentioned coming up in a few weeks' time against Liverpool, it would seem. So Dubravka, Trippier, Burn, Schär and Hall, Willock, Guimaraes, Tonali, and then a front three of Gordon, Murphy and Isak. But Manchester City were attacking, and Foden looked like he was going to shape to shoot on the edge of the penalty area, but he was caught in possession. But then the ball is played out by Gonzalez to Savinho, and then back with Gonzalez again in the midfield. He's got a real presence about him, hasn't he, Nico Gonzalez?
He has, Ian, yes. He had a brief cameo at Leyton Orient. I was there in the FA Cup where actually had to come off fairly early with an injury, but no, he's sitting in that Rodri position, holding role for him this afternoon. He'll be looking to knit everything together, but Newcastle happy to press Manchester City high up the pitch in this opening minute or two. Savinho starting on the right for Manchester City. I think we did wonder, both teams 4-3-3, but Mamouche will play narrow off that left-hand side up top for Manchester City.
Andy Madley is the referee. He's just given Manchester City a free kick. Millwall, West Bromwich Albion, incidentally, in the Championship. Kick-off delayed by 15 minutes due to crowd congestion. Tonali with a trip on Gundogan, as Pep Guardiola is already out of his technical area with his big, thick, padded black puffer jacket, as Haaland, the Manchester City captain, is stopped in his tracks by Schär. Mamouche, who's gone into a central area, plays it back to Gonzalez. Foden now collects it. He's trying to get some instructions across at the moment, is Pep Guardiola to one of his defenders. It's John Stones who he's having a bit of a dialogue with at the moment. Mamouche is challenged by Guimaraes. There was no foul there, and Newcastle United are able to get the ball away. Newcastle United in a great run of form. Aside from the 2 home defeats, they've won 12 of 14.
Yeah, absolutely, and you could say surprise home defeats, but Bournemouth, as we've seen, are capable of beating anyone, and Fulham on their day are a pretty decent side as well, aren't they? So it'd be no surprise if Newcastle walked away with 3 points here at the Etihad. They're a team, I don't think they're overly bothered about possession. Under Eddie Howe, it's all about being effective, and boy, have they been effective in recent weeks. Mark mentioned that injury time goal for Portsmouth as they increased their lead at Oxford United. It has indeed finished Oxford United 0, Portsmouth 2. The ball goes back to Edison in the Manchester City goal. Luminous orange goalkeeping outfit, and he hits it flat and long, looking towards Haaland, but it's gathered in by Dubravka. So Nick Pope, who'd been on the bench for 3 occasions before returning to the starting lineup against Birmingham last week, back on bench duties. That is significant with the League Cup final weeks away. It is. It's a great position for Eddie Howe to be in, knowing that he's got 2 excellent goalkeepers, and there's a choice to be made. That's where you want to be at a football club, isn't it? Competition for places.
Ball picked up by Lewis Hall for Newcastle United, finds the feet of Gordon. Husinov was tight behind him. Newcastle United are awarded a free kick midway through the Manchester City half. Pep Guardiola is making a point of applauding above his head. I think it might have been for Husinov's composed defending when the ball was on the edge of his area, and it was a sharp turn, and he played the ball out of defence and seemed to do so well before then giving away the free kick.
Yeah, and that was a clumsy challenge actually on Anthony Gordon. They're going to have to keep a close eye on him with the form he's in. But Husinov, of course, had that nightmare debut, didn't he?
Against Chelsea.
Yeah, against Chelsea. And, you know, he'll be hoping that things will be better for him this afternoon. That experience of John Stones alongside him going to be crucial.
Tonali, from that short free kick, chips it long. Trippier can't bring the ball under control, and it runs out of play for a goal kick. As we welcome listeners to the BBC World Service here to the northwest of England, a wet and cold Manchester City 0, Newcastle United 0, but wherever you are in the world, a pleasure as always to have your company. 5 minutes in, 0-0 between these two sides. City go long, they're playing from left to right as we look. Haaland enters the penalty area, left-hand side, and coming across was Dan Burns, sliding in the penalty area and forces the ball over and behind for a corner kick.
Well, they got lucky there. Newcastle did at the back. They're happy to press and go man for man, and Erling Haaland runs into the left channel. He just takes a heavy touch. Dan Burn backs off him. Mamouche was free, 6 yards out. Should have been a ball whipped across earlier to Mamouche, and Manchester City would be ahead.
Manchester City have a corner kick far side the left. Newcastle United haven't won here for a quarter of a century. Well, away at Manchester City, they've never won here in the league at the Etihad. They've drawn 2 and lost 17 in 19 previous league visits. Nothing really materialises from that corner kick, but there's been a goal at West Ham. Lee Blakeman.
And it's gone to Brentford. West Ham 0, Brentford 1. Sharda with the goal. It looked like it had been saved by Areola. Referee looked at his watch. It went over the line. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
And Crawley Town are leading Wycombe Wanderers by 1-0 in League One. Earlier, Phil Parkinson's Wrexham moved within a point of Wycombe after a 2-0 win at Northampton. Cambridge 0, Exeter 1 was the other results in the early games in League One. And in League Two, AFC Wimbledon went second, beating Salford by 1-0. Doncaster 1, Grimsby 2, so a missed opportunity for Doncaster Rovers. 0-0 here in the Premier League, 6 minutes played. Edison slides the ball along the ground. The goalkeeper to Foden, lays it off. Stones is the one who can run forward. Gvardiol is ahead of him on that far side the left, as Gundogan now takes over left of the centre circle. In towards Marmouche. Marmouche in the centre circle holds off the challenge of Willock. Out towards Savinho, coming in off this near right touchline. He looks up, Gvardiol has made the run, but then Savinho doesn't pass the ball to the left back, who then reverts to his position midway through the Newcastle half.
Yeah, and Newcastle United happy to press Manchester City high up the pitch, but once Manchester City play through that initial press, they drop and get that back four, and the two midfielders sitting in front, Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes, and not a lot's gone through the centre.
Foden gets the ball back, runs away from the Newcastle midfield. Gonzalez then will go square to Gundogan. Gvardiol again has stayed out quite wide. Rico Lewis in that right back but inverted role, then gets the ball back from Husinov on the halfway line. Gonzalez, City keeping the ball, little flick by Foden. They lost it momentarily, and then Foden with a floated ball up towards Gvardiol, and he runs onto that as the left back, and he's about 6 yards away from the byline now on that left hand side, and he carves the ball back to Gundogan. Manchester City are probing and seeing a lot of the ball in these early stages, and then they lose it. Let's get news of that goal at Crawley. Betty Glover.
No one expected this. Third from bottom, Crawley have the lead against the Wycombe side who've been on fire. It's Will Swan, brilliant strike on the edge of the box, top right corner. It's Crawley 1, Wycombe 0.
And the League Two leaders, Walsall, who are having a little bit of a bump in the road at the moment. They only picked up 2 points out of 15, so 5 without a win for the League Two leaders, and they have fallen behind at the Bescott Stadium. Walsall 0, Chesterfield 1. Dubravka comes out of his penalty area, all in green away on that right hand side, clears it long out of play for a throw.
Yeah, Kieran Trippier just dallied and went to pop the ball back to Dubravka, shut down by Mamouche. And Dubravka punting the ball into the stand. All the space out wide for Manchester City. Newcastle defending really narrowly. They want City playing through them.
0-0. Ball breaks up towards Isak. Isak can now run forward. He's got to go it alone for Newcastle. Gordon is making good ground on this near side. Isak runs forward on that far side, the right, slides it through to Guimaraes, who's offside. So I mentioned that Chesterfield are leading. Here's Ben Mundy.
Walsall 0, Chesterfield 1. Well worked corner for the visitors, work to the back post. Captain Jamie Grimes leaping highest and heading home. It's a setback for the leaders, Walsall. It's Walsall 0, Chesterfield 1.
Earlier in the Premier League, Leicester City 0, Arsenal 2. Those results in the Championship: Cardiff 1, Bristol City 1, Oxford 0, Portsmouth 2, as we've mentioned, and Preston North End 0, Burnley 0, and 11th clean sheet, successive clean sheet for Burnley in the Championship.
Yes, an incredible defensive record, haven't they, under Scott Parker? But they don't score too many goals at this moment in time, Burnley.
So they will go to 65 points, so they're still 2 behind Sheffield United, as Newcastle United are attacking with Guimaraes, plays it to Trippier from that right side, midway through the Manchester City half, infield to Tonali, Byrne, left of the centre circle, Hall, down the line to Gordon, Gordon goes back inside to Hall, made his debut for Chelsea here, I recall, in a League Cup tie a few years ago, and actually had a good game for Chelsea that night, did Lewis Hall, but they still attack the Newcastle on the other side, the right. Trippier gets the ball in from the touchline, level with the penalty area, back towards Tonali. Probably the first time that Newcastle United have had a sustained spell of possession in this game.
Absolutely, just trying to get a foothold into the game in terms of keeping possession. Manchester City now dropping into a fairly low block.
Talk about Newcastle United's wretched record against Manchester City. Eddie Howe's only had one win in 17 against Pep Guardiola in his managerial career, drawn 2 and losing 14. The sharp intake of breath was because the ball had gone back to Ederson, who was very casual. He wasn't fazed at all, but I could see Gordon racing towards him on the blind side, but he did get the ball away in good time, as it turned out. Let's go to Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
It's 0-0. Villa thought they'd had at least a free kick on the edge of the box from the keeper, Ipswich. Palmer body checked Rodgers. They looked for the yellow card and the free kick. They got neither. Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
Thanks, Pat. 89.5% possession for Manchester City. As Savinho, 0-0, runs forward, runs at Hall, goes away from Tonali, cuts on the inside. Hall then will just use his strength, steps in front of Savinho and helps guide the ball back to Dubravka.
Yeah, he did really well there, Savinho, on that right-hand side, driving inside the box, trying to weave the ball onto that left foot of his, but Hall stands firm, gets his body in and shepherds it back to Dubravka. Fascinating, those head-to-heads in wide areas, and that's one to watch out for, Savinho against Hall.
Savinho just tried to wriggle away from Hall. Ball had gone out of play, and the assistant referee initially gave it in favour of the home side, but then changed his mind and has since awarded that throw to Newcastle United. 0-0. St Mary's will go to next. Henry Moran.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 0. Lively game this. Paul Onachu, 6'7" tall, almost getting on the end of the cross for Southampton. Header just goes wide. At the other end from Ouattara, it remains goalless.
Kilmarnock are leading St Johnstone by 1-0 in the Scottish Premiership. You're up to date with the goals as they go in. We'll nip to Craven Cottage. John Southall.
Fulham 0, Forest 0. First chance for Fulham. Trier on the right hand side. Jimenez rose 8 yards out and headed wide of the left hand post. Fulham 0, Forest 0.
And Dubravka safely marshals the ball out of play, but it's down by the corner flag and that far right corner, in between where the away support is. The 3 tiers of away support behind that goal towards our right, and then segregated by a line of stewards with their luminous jackets on this grey, bleak afternoon, where it remains 0-0, 13 minutes in. Trippier goes long with a throw over the head of Willock, headed forward by Tonali. Gvardiol's ball inside, won't really come down. Foden then makes a sharp turn. Haaland takes over, touches the ball out towards Marmoush. Infield it goes to Haaland, left corner of the area, never in control of the ball, and Newcastle United dispossess him.
Yes, another poor touch from Erling Haaland there. Had the one earlier where he had the chance to cross into Marmoush, and they're careless there, giving the ball away. It's Newcastle just to get back in possession. A lot of talk in this before the game about Erling Haaland and Alexander Isak. Who would you rather have? Who would you rather have?
Isak.
Would you really?
Yes.
I'm quite surprised by that.
Who would you rather have?
Well, the one who scores the most goals, and that would be Haaland. It's interesting, Eddie Howe, saying that Isak, there's a bit of a mixture, isn't he, in terms of he can play wide and in that central role.
Hull City 1, Norwich City 0 is the latest score. Bristol Rovers lead Burton Albion by 1-0 in League One. And we'll go to Southampton and Henry Moran.
And there is the opening goal. Southampton 0, Bournemouth 1. Cross from the left. Oh, so easy for Dango Ouattara to nod past Aaron Ramsdale. It's Southampton 0, Bournemouth 1.
Erling Haaland, 117 goals and 132 appearances. Alexander Isak, 54 in 95. They are both world-class strikers.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Haaland, I think, more of an out-and-out number 9.
Would you concur that Isak's the better footballer?
I think he's more of a team player than Erling Haaland, but in fairness, Erling Haaland, I think he's told to just occupy the centre half, so we'll see Alexander Isak drift out into the wide areas at times. I think when Eddie Howe first took over as manager, he played him wide left, didn't he? Callum Wilson as a central striker.
In the Yorkshire derby, Barnsley leading Huddersfield Town by a goal to 0 in League One. Foden's low cross, Burn on the stretch, had to get there because Haaland was making a run in behind that penalty area. They've cleared it only as far as Guardiola on the far side. It remains 0-0. We've been playing for a quarter of an hour. There's been a goal at Fulham. John Southall.
Fulham have the lead. Fulham 1, Nottingham Forest 0. Adama Traore did really well on the right hand side, whipped across to the back post, and there was Emile Smith-Rowe to nod it in. Fulham 1, Forest 0.
Nottingham Forest, of course, are in the hunt for Champions League places, as here is Mamouche, and left-footed inside left channel of the penalty area, couldn't keep it down. Goal kick, 0-0.
Yeah, he's playing narrow off the left-hand side, Mamouche, and it's a slide rule pass from Guardiola. Feeds it into Mamouche, who drives into the area on the left-hand side. The angle against him, I think he should try and cross that in. He elects to shoot, and that's well over Dubravka's bar.
Sheffield Wednesday 0, Coventry City 1. John Murray on the Commentators View podcast, which is always available on the 5 Live Football Daily feed, has had a number of times to commentate on Omar Mamouche. And I think he's relished saying Mamouche as the way that he would. And he's yet to score. As we go back to Southampton, where there's been another goal. Henry Moran.
That sinking feeling for Southampton. Bournemouth have got a second. Oh, so easy again. Ryan Christie with space, bottom corner, and it's Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2.
Bottom of the table before today, 10 points adrift of Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolverhampton Wanderers, who play Liverpool tomorrow. You'll hear that on 5 Live Premier League Sunday, which will be on air from midday. Guimaraes with the interception. And now looks for Isak through the middle. Isak, he's got Husanov and Stones with him. Support now arriving from Gordon, but he didn't see him. He's drifted the other way. He's gone towards the right corner of the penalty area. And then Gvardiol dispossesses him. Bradford City, incidentally, are down to 10 men. Jack Shepherd has been sent off. So they're drawing 0-0 away at Newport County. And Leyton Orient are leading Lincoln City by a goal to 0 in League One. You are up to date with the goals as they go in on BBC Radio 5 Live, the World Service, and BBC Sounds.
He was just muscled out there, wasn't he? Alexander Isak from Guardiola, who got back, but just before then, big chance for Manchester City. Careless play from Fabian Schär out at the back. Pass the ball straight to Mamouche, with Haaland free in the centre of the goal. He just overweighted his pass, and Dubravka came out and gathered.
Pep Guardiola was almost right on the edge of the pitch there. Savinho kept the ball in play. He went to high-five him and then rubbed his head. You almost heard the collective little giggle of the laughter from the supporters in front of us as well, which I've got to say, I saw that on social media in midweek. Luke O'Nien for Sunderland clattered into the assistant referee. Everybody then laughed, as they do when that happens with a match official. Ball over the top, Mamouche is in. Mamouche steadies himself. Mamouche with a lob. There's the first goal of many from Omar Mamouche. Manchester City lead. Took it so well. Kept himself composed. Right-footed, lobbed Dubravka. Manchester City lead Newcastle by a goal to 0.
Yeah, but Newcastle prepared to go man for man, prepared to press Manchester City high, and it's just one long ball from Ederson, who clips it over the Newcastle backline. Terrible judgment from Kieran Trippier, who thinks he can just go and head the ball. He doesn't. He gets drawn underneath the ball, misjudges the flight, and then it's all about Mamouche staying calm, and he lifts the ball brilliantly over Dubravka, who's in no man's land, into the back of the net. Manchester City have the lead. Terrible defending from Trippier, but the finish was clinical from Mamouche.
37 goals in 69 appearances in 18 months for Eintracht Frankfurt. He will prove to be a very good acquisition for Manchester City. It was a measured goal, and really, as soon as that ball reached him, there was only one outcome.
Yep, absolutely. Just had to keep his composure. It's a bouncing ball, and Dubravka was nowhere really, stuck in between, and he lifted the ball over. Dubravka into the back of the net. Can Manchester City see this one through, Ian?
Well, even if they were 2 or 3 goals to the good, given what's happened to them on occasions this season, they might only start to rest easy if they were 4 goals up, bearing in mind that they've thrown away leads against Feyenoord, Brentford, Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid. However, Newcastle United hadn't scored in their last 6 visits to the Etihad before today, and that is the 18th goal now that they've conceded during that time. Blackpool lead Mansfield Town by 1-0 at Bloomfield Road in League One, and Wycombe Wanderers have equalised at Crawley. Crawley 1, Wycombe 1, Shrewsbury 1, Bolton Wanderers 0 is another latest score in League One. But Manchester City are leading here on 5 Live, BBC Sounds and the World Service. What about the Newcastle response? Let's get news of the Wycombe equaliser. Betty Glover.
Lovely goal from Wycombe. Daniel Udo drives into the box, swerves his defender and powers it into the back of the net. He has been pushing for this. It's Crawley 1, Wycombe 1.
Nevertheless, it was still quite a comical moment, wasn't it, with Guardiola and Savinho, as he's then caught in the middle of a sandwich between Willock and Gordon. Manchester City are playing well.
Guardiola and Savinho.
What did I say?
Guardiola. Just trying to work that out for a minute.
I've told you many times, on a Saturday afternoon when you've got the constant talk back in the cans, if you want to ask for any money, now's the time to do so. I mean, the answer will still be no, but you can still ask away. Up towards Haaland. They lead by 1-0. Almost broke there towards Foden. Cher goes back towards Dubravka, gets it out from his feet, passes the ball to Byrne, up towards Willock, midway through his own half. Manchester City, they're working very hard off the ball, and swept away by Cher. Gordon tries to roll away from Husinov and does so, and Guardiola isn't happy. And now Gordon looks towards Isak, but Stones came across and prevented it from reaching the Swedish international.
Schoolboy defending from Husinov though. On the halfway line, ball played into Anthony Gordon. Husinov tries to nip in front. Gordon just rolls him, drives down the left-hand side, and fortunate Husinov that Stones got round to make the interception.
Earlier on I said Guardiola was applauding above his head about the good play by Husinov. He's done it again as he marched away out of the technical area. This is almost 2 illustrations where he's trying to publicly back the players' confidence or boost the players' confidence so the whole crowd can see it.
Yep, absolutely. I think in his programme notes he talked about everybody needs to take accountability for recent performance, and from his technical area he is literally driving the team on, giving them instruction. The importance of getting back on track, Manchester City. I think the aim this season, it has to be top 4, doesn't it? They're not going to win the Premier League. Yeah,
well, it'll be top 5 the way it's looking with the coefficients with England so far ahead of Italy and Spain as it stands. But certainly a day after Valentine's Day, you can feel the love and you can see the love that Guardiola is showing to the Uzbekistan international. They lead by 1-0. Gundogan inside the centre circle. Guardiola is forward on that far side. Manchester City are attacking. Ball played forward. There's another shot and another goal for Mamouche. I told you it'd be the first of many. Low right-footed, beat Dubravka inside his near post and nestles in the bottom left-hand corner. And Manchester City double their lead. 2 goals in the space of 5 minutes. Manchester City 2, Newcastle 0.
I think there's a slight deflection on the shot from Mamouche, but Newcastle just haven't got going. And it's a quick switch of play, and the ball fed to Mamouche. I think touch and go whether he's offside or not, but he drags the ball inside onto that right foot, left-hand side of the area, and fires a shot, and Dubravka gets down to his right-hand side, but he can't keep that out. It's Gundogan who slides the ball to him, takes it brilliantly, and then really whips the shot past Dubravka.
So Manchester City lead by 2-0 in League One. Crawley 1, Wycombe 1. What about the leaders? Birmingham City. There's been a goal. Sani Rudravajula.
The leaders are ahead. Birmingham City 1, Charlton 0. Jay Stansfield robbing Charlton's Connor Coventry in the left-back position on the halfway line, driving into the area and smashing it into the roof of the net for a 19th of the season. Birmingham 1, Charlton 0.
Celtic lead Dundee United by 1-0. Blackpool 1, Mansfield Town 1 is the latest score in League One. You're up to date here on BBC Radio 5 Live. And Manchester City 2-0 up, and Newcastle United at the minute are going to have to try and get some hold of a foothold back in the game, because Manchester City have got their tails up. They're playing with a quick tempo, they're playing it fast, and this could be a tricky afternoon for Newcastle if it wasn't already.
Yeah, the thing is with Manchester City, and we've known this all season, is when it does click and they get their passing game going and they play with dynamism as they have done so far this afternoon, they are absolutely sensational.
Gundogan looks for the ball over the top towards Haaland. Burns' header might still fall towards Haaland. Challenges Dubravka, picked up by the Newcastle goalkeeper. News of that goal at Celtic Park. Ailey Barber.
It has been coming in. Celtic lead by 1-0 thanks to captain Callum McGregor driving into the penalty area. A really nice shot right into the bottom corners. His 7th of the season, his first from inside the box. It's Celtic 1, Dundee United 0.
Thanks, Ailey. Reading 1, Rotherham United 0. Incidentally, we'll be live in Munich on Tuesday and in Madrid on Wednesday for those second legs of the Champions League playoffs, where both British sides have got a lot to do, as Tonali tries to thread a ball through the middle towards Willock. Celtic were beaten by Bayern Munich 2-1 in the first leg, and here, of course, Manchester City supporters need no reminding that Real Madrid won by 3-2. And incidentally, that first goal for City, Ederson moves on to 6 assists in the Premier League, the most in the history by a goalkeeper. He was indeed level with Paul Robinson, who'll form part of our commentary team in the Bernabeu on Wednesday night. To West Ham and Lee Blakeman.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1, but it could be more. Wissers just had a goal disallowed for an offside, and then Burmo into the area, tried a shot, good save by the legs of Alphonse Areola to keep it at West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Manchester City 2-0 up. Lewis plays the ball back. Husinov will go back to his goalkeeper Ederson, who looks for again another flat ball out from the back towards Haaland. Bounces off the chest of Haaland, touched away by Willock, tidied up by Dan Burn. Pat Murphy at Villa Park.
It's 0-0. Ipswich competing hard, but the half chance is falling to Villa. 2 injury substitutions though. Mings is on for the injured Camara, and Clark has come on for Enciso. Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
Tonali chips the ball out long. Isak has drifted out wide, right hand side, now glides into the penalty area. Isak chips the ball across, Lewis tucked in, heads it away, bouncing ball, Gundogan down towards Gonzalez, edge of the area, manages to get it back towards Gundogan, steps across Tonali, passes the ball towards Savinho, and all of a sudden Manchester City are on the front foot once again, and Savinho carries the ball, Hall back pedals, Foden back towards Savinho, spilled by the goalkeeper and eventually cleared by Burn. It was almost a third.
Should have been the third. Brilliant driving run from Savinho on that right-hand side, jinking inside on his left foot. Quick 1-2 with Phil Foden, who waits the ball brilliantly back to Savinho, strolls onto it. He's trying to find the far corner, gets it too close to Dubravka, who gets down to his right-hand side and makes a smart save in the end.
Leyton Orient 2, Lincoln City 0. Pep Guardiola was happy to play as the role of cheerleader there, with the crowd created the noise inside the Etihad here, because there's no letting up from Manchester City. Mamouche, Haaland with a cross, and almost slid into his own net by Burn, but in the end he prevented a certain goal, because behind him waiting was Foden, but a well-timed sliding challenge by Burn concedes the corner kick. But Manchester City are looking rampant.
Yeah, brilliant forward play from Mamouche once again, slides the ball to Haaland, who's unselfish, gets his head up, he's trying to find Phil Foden at the far post, who couldn't have missed, but Dan Burn, how crucial could that be at full stretch, pokes the ball behind. City have been so dominant, Ian.
So dominant, 29 minutes played, leading 2-0, could be more. Corner kick, in swinger from that far side, claimed by Dubravka. Newcastle though had everybody back inside that penalty area. This is a Newcastle United side that had won their last 6 away from home in all competitions. 4 of those in the top flight. They were looking for 5 on the spin for the first time in the Premier League since October 94, the days of Kevin Keegan. As Blackpool 1, Mansfield Town 2 is now the latest scoreline in League One. But Manchester City lead here 2-0. Earlier, Arsenal moved within 4 points of leaders Arsenal with a 2-0 win against Leicester City as Isak picks up a loose ball. Isak into the penalty area, shoots, deflected and goes across the face of goal. Important block by Stones as it turns out. Corner kick.
And that's all it takes, a moment of carelessness from Manchester City. As Guardiola, I think, trying to play the ball inside to a teammate and it's deflected into the path of Isak, right-hand side of the box, little shift. And John Stones gets a crucial block. I think that may have been heading into the far corner. Comes off John Stones' heel, last-ditch defending. And Newcastle have the corner.
Wouldn't take much to test that fragility of Manchester City, giving away the leads that they've squandered this season. Corner comes in from Trippier, punched away by Edison, picked up by Gordon for Newcastle United. Playing from right to left as we look. On this near side the left, Trippier to Gordon. Drives the ball into the penalty area. Stones attacks it and heads it out and gets distance on it. Dundee 0, Aberdeen 1 is the latest score in the Scottish Premiership. Cross comes in from Murphy on the right-hand side, blocked by Gvardiol. And we're going to go to West Ham. Who's just hit the woodwork? Lee Blakeman.
Brentford have. They should be 2-0 up here. And Sharda played in left side of the area. Fierce shot, came back off the outside of the post, and it's still West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2. Fulham lead Nottingham Forest by a goal to 0. Villa 0, Ipswich 0. Gordon into the penalty area. Gvardiol will clear the ball away. Out it goes for a throw. It's Luton Town against Sheffield United in the Championship, affects both ends of the table. Chris Coles.
And it's 0-0, but bottom of the Championship, Luton are the better side. They're playing like the Luton of old. They've had the best chances. Thilo Asgard hitting the crossbar from just inside the area, the best of them. Luton 0, Sheffield United 0.
Did well, didn't he, when he was at Wigan? 12 goals he scored for the League One side this season. Leeds play Sunderland, of course, on Monday night, so an opportunity for Sheffield United to put pressure on Leeds. Indeed, they'll go top with a win, but also try and get away from Burnley, who drew 0-0 at Preston North End earlier. No other goals to tell you about elsewhere around the country. Here we are at the Etihad. Manchester City lead 2-0, but Newcastle are attacking. Willock on this near side, the left. Slows down, sends over a cross, headed away by Stones. That was a blatant push by Tonali on Phil Foden. We'll go to Craven Cottage. John Southall.
Still lead Forest by 1-0, but 2 Fulham chances, both for Jimenez. The first a header straight at the keeper, the second on the volley, pushed around the post by Sells. Fulham 1, Forest 0.
We'll be going racing soon. It's the Ascot Chase. It's due off at 3:37. Just to mark your card. And also a little later on, as well as Chris taking your calls after our next commentary of Crystal Palace Everton, which is at 5:30 after Sports Report. Chris and Robbie Savage, 6:06. We then got the boxing as Savinho bursts into the penalty area, pulls it back. Mamouche is there. Omar Mamouche, magnificent Mamouche with a hat-trick inside 33 minutes, and Manchester City lead Newcastle United by 3-0.
There I was talking about Isak and Haaland before the game. Who would you take? Well, you'd take Mamouche, wouldn't you, on this afternoon's form? This is all about Savinho, though, on the right-hand side. Does brilliantly, because we know he likes to come inside on his left foot, drives the outside of Hall, gets his head up and just feeds the ball across the 6-yard line. And Mamouche finishes with aplomb into the back of the net. Clean strike from him. He's not going to miss that one. 8 yards out, lifts it over Dubravka. Brilliant hat-trick, and Manchester City in scintillating form.
And Eddie Howe, with his hands on his hips, just turns with his head bowed, trudges his way back and sits down in the dugout. Tranmere Rovers 0, MK Dons 1. Real Madrid, incidentally, are leading at Osasuna. Kylian Mbappe has scored, and Barrow are leading at Cheltenham in League 2 by a 0-0. And at Fir Park, Motherwell 0, Ross County 1. By the way that Manchester City are playing here, this will be a real confidence boost going to that trip to the Bernabeu.
Yeah, absolutely, and they sort of need to go with that confidence with the array of striking talent that Real Madrid have. We know that when it clicks, they are so capable. It has just been, Ian, hasn't it, a head scratcher of a season from Manchester City. I mean, they were bound to have a drop-off at some stage, but not the drop-off they've had.
Could be in again here. Gvardiol turns, left-hand side of the penalty area, rolls the ball back. Marmouche gives it to Gonzalez, back towards Gundogan. Newcastle United been stunned, trailing by 3-0 on that left-hand side. Gonzalez plays it out towards Gvardiol. In that delayed game in the Championship, there's been a goal. Mark Webber.
18 minutes in, Millwall 1, West Brom 0. They've been trying for a couple of minutes to score, but Jake Cooper, the captain, finally using his head in the area to knock it home. Millwall 1, West Brom 0.
Newcastle United then trailing by 3-0, and Omar Marmouche with all 3 goals.
Yep. Tremendous first half. They've done that well as well. That long ball from Ederson on numerous occasions has worked. Here's Savinho attacking Hall at pace. Savinho towards the far post. Nobody's there. No word of a lie. Manchester City would have scored 5 goals here today. You couldn't have many complaints, as Marmouche will win a corner kick on that far side. They've attacked with speed and real menace. Yep, they have done. And they've been really effective, mixed the game up well. Pep Guardiola, big thumbs up to Ederson, who we know he's so capable of clipping those long balls in behind with great accuracy. But I've got to say, Lewis Hall is petrified of Savinho, isn't he? Now that head-to-head, I think, was always going to have a large bearing on this game, and Lewis Hall cannot cope.
Marmouche gets a standing ovation as he makes his way over to take the corner kick on that far side. It's an in-swinger. It's flicked on by Gvardiol. It drops and loops onto the top of the roof of the net and goes out of play for a goal kick. You're quite right, though, when you say it's a head-scratcher. Bearing in mind, I think you'd said that they'd lost 12 of the last 24, Manchester City. But before that, they'd got an unbeaten run of 14 games. It's not like they've been scratchy from the start of the season.
No, absolutely, but just having a lot of changes and the confidence has dipped a bit. It's just not what we expect from, or what we've expected from Manchester City this season, because of the previous experience. Four Premier Leagues on the spin, that says it all, and how ruthless they've been. That they've certainly lost the edge this season, but not this afternoon. No,
they've certainly got the bit between the teeth. They're chasing everything. You know, that's the one thing I always have been impressed with at Manchester City, about their work ethic off the ball, and certainly today it's very evident. Celtic have got a second goal at home to Dundee United. They lead 2-0. Let's go to Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
It's still 0-0, but Villa's Watkins has just had the best chance. He got goal side of O'Shea, under challenge from O'Shea, though he scuffed it wide with his left foot with just the keeper to beat. Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
Straight to Craven Cottage. There's been a goal. John Southall.
Forest have the equaliser against the run of play. Fulham 1, Forest 0. Chris Wood, of course, with it, kept his composure inside the penalty area and just curled it into the bottom corner. 18th of the season. Fulham 1, Forest 1.
And news of that Celtic second goal from Ailey.
Jota on the wing, being sung around Celtic Park because their little Portuguese wingers just put them 2-0 up, cutting in from the left. Lovely right foot curling effort into the back post. Celtic 2, Dundee United 0.
I mentioned the Ascot chase. They're just underway. John Hunt.
Approaching fence number 2, and unlike last year's race, Ian, Pic D'Orhy dominated from the start there. This time around, Pic D'Orhy, the favourite, is being challenged for the lead early by Lompresse, with the well-fancied Corbett's Cross right on their tail. Fascinating change tactically here. Over fence 3, Pic D'Orhy leads, but only narrowly.
We'll be back with you very soon, John. Manchester City then leading by 3-0. A Marmouche hat-trick as we have 7 minutes to go to half-time. And Newcastle United, rare foray into the Manchester City half. They have a corner kick far side the right. Manchester City got everybody back inside their own penalty area, and then it's rolled short to Gordon. Back towards Hall, clips it to Trippier, sends it in high towards the far post. Guimaraes with the looping header at the far post, off target, goal kick. Chris Sutton.
It was actually poor judgment from Ederson, who's been brilliant with his feet this afternoon, but he's caught in no man's land there, where it's a high ball to the back post. And Bruno Guimaraes gets up pretty well but can't direct it back across Ederson. Eddie Howe, his press conference, talking about Manchester City still the benchmark. They've been the consistent team over recent seasons. Isn't it you talk about head scratches, Newcastle's record here though.
Yeah,
I mean, a capable, really capable Newcastle team in recent seasons. And yet it's absolutely awful, isn't it? There's that long ball again.
Picked up by Marmouche, holds off Murphy, and then plays it out towards Savinho, who's on this right-hand side. His left-footed ball blocked by Willock, falls to the feet of Foden. Gonzalez. Manchester City now have scored in each of their last 33 league games since a goalless draw here back in November 2006. And in top-flight history, none of this Premier League talk, but in top-flight history, there have only been 3 longer, better scoring sequences. Everton-Blackburn between 25 and 62, Spurs and Newcastle, which is 35 games between 1922 and 61, and Chelsea against Newcastle, which is 37 games between 1933 and 1969. So Newcastle feature in 3 of the top 4 of those goal-scoring records, but not good from a Newcastle point of view. They've got to make sure they don't concede again. Corner kick, right-hand side, goes deep towards the far post. Haaland's head directs it off target, goal kick. Chris Sutton.
Yeah, looping corner from Foden, and Haaland just couldn't direct the ball on target, unlike him.
Twanzebe has been sent off at Ipswich. We'll get news of that sending off in a moment, but first of all we're going to get news of a goal at Middlesbrough. Charlie Slater.
Middlesbrough 0, Watford 1. Bullet header from Moussa Sissoko from a corner, nothing that the keeper could do about it, and Watford lead by 1-0 with less than 5 minutes left at the end of the first half.
Middlesbrough really are out of form. They'd lost 4 of their last 5 before today. Let's get news of that sending off. Pat Murphy.
Twanzebe, Ipswich, second yellow card inside 8 minutes for a foul on Ramsey. Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
We'll go back to the racing, and at Ascot, John Hunt.
And this race has developed dramatically shortly after the start, Ian, which we described a few moments ago. Lompresse lost a lot of ground rapidly, and he was pulled up after just 6 fences. Lompresse out of the race. Pictori, the favourite, then went on to stretch the field, and he's now cleared away from the third last fence from Corbett's Cross, and in 3rd position, Blue Lord, the 2 Irish challengers, but they're just being left behind at the moment. This is very much a home game for Pictori. He's won 4 times here at Ascot. This his Gold Cup this afternoon. He won't go to Cheltenham, but can he land another Grade 1 success? It looks highly likely. Second last fence, Pictori, and his rider has not yet moved yet, Harry Cobden. He's 8-9 lengths clear of Corbett's Cross, and Blue Lord back in 3rd place. They're making no impression, so with Lompresse a big no-show today, Pictori in glorious isolation coming down towards the last fence, and just like last year, he flew it. He's going to win it again and do so in tremendous style, and this brings to an end such a frustrating run of poor form for champion trainer Paul Nicholls. He's had a miserable time. This puts the smile back on his face. Pictori slams Corbett's Cross and Blue Lord.
I bet it does. Cheltenham, incidentally, creeping ever closer. March the 11th, you'll hear the best possible coverage on BBC Radio 5 Live. West Brom have equalised at Millwall. Millwall 1. West Bromwich Albion 1, and there's been a goal at West Ham. Lee Blakeman.
Another one for Brentford. They lead 2-0. Wonderful team goal. Jan Alt playing in Wissa. Side foot finish. It's nothing less than they deserve. West Ham 0, Brentford 2.
We've got 2 minutes to go to half-time, where Manchester City are leading by 3-0. Let's get news of that West Brom equaliser. Mark Webber.
Yeah, it's Millwall 1, West Brom 1. It's an own goal by Millwall's Joe Bryan. The cross came in from Darnell Furlong, and Joe Bryan just pushed it into his own net to make it Millwall 1, West Brom 1.
Free kick for Manchester City. Foden to take it into the penalty area, on the edge of the box it goes. Hall can run it clear for Newcastle United in their maroon and navy hoop jerseys, and the ball then by Guimaraes will release Willock, who latches onto this left side of the penalty area. Willock comes into the box now, but again the amount of sky blue shirts that were back there in the penalty area to snuff out the Newcastle attack.
Yeah, Willock always going to try and shift the ball inside, driving run from the halfway line. Always going to try and get it on his favoured right foot as John Stones on the recovery run. The desire's there, isn't it, this afternoon from Manchester City. The application has been absolutely excellent.
Ball knocked down by Haaland. Marmouche overruns it, much to the annoyance of Pep Guardiola. Lee, I'm hearing that Brentford's second goal didn't stand.
For the tightest of offside calls against Ayer. Very, very tight, so it stays West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
We'll just have the 1 additional minute of added on time here which we are 60 seconds away. Lewis can't prevent that ball reaching Gordon despite his best efforts, sliding on the wet surface this grey cold afternoon where Newcastle United trail by 3-0. Here is Tonali, Dan Burn, Cher just outside the centre circle of the City half, out towards that far side. Murphy, who we've rarely seen as an attacking force on the right, leaves it now for Guimaraes, comes forward. Tonali switches play, bouncing ball off the chest by Gordon, faced up by Lewis. Gordon's cross blocked by Lewis, loops up into the air and doesn't go out of play for a corner, but it will go out instead for a Newcastle throw.
Yeah, it's good from Rico Lewis. His job is to stop the cross and did it well. And Manchester City just finishing the half, sitting deep. 4-5-1 out of possession. Newcastle haven't laid a glove on them, have they really? I suppose they had the earlier Isak effort, but that wasn't an easy one. John Stones deflected wide, but didn't see this performance coming from Newcastle. It's been flat as anything, but I think more so the credit has to go to Manchester City, the way that they've approached this first half, the way that they've mixed the game up.
It's been extremely one-sided, and in fact the scoreline, Manchester City could easily have had further goals other than the Marmoush hat-trick as we now enter the 60 seconds of added on time here at the Etihad. Manchester City, who had looked to go to 44 points, so they would move over Chelsea in the table. But as we mentioned earlier, that extra Champions League place with UEFA's coefficients, England have a bit of a gap over Italy and Spain, who are the countries closer to them. So certainly the Premier League well set for an extra Champions League place, but Manchester City might not need to worry about the top 5 because they are on course for the top 4, and certainly it's been a very impressive performance.
Yep, display of real authority. Mamouche magnificent with his hat-trick. Savinho has caused all sorts of problems down the Manchester City right-hand side. Eddie Howe with plenty of thinking to do on a ground where he cannot get a result.
No, we can't. Mamouche is the man of the moment, and undoubtedly probably will be the man of the match. It's his hat-trick that separates the two sides. Manchester City 3, Newcastle United 0.
Very comfortable first half for the champions, then back with Ian and Chris for the second half. Let's go to Craven Cottage, where it's much more balanced. John Southall.
It is, and there's the half-time whistle. Fulham 1, Nottingham Forest 1. I think Fulham will wonder how on earth this is level. For 37 minutes they dominated after Smith Rowe's opening goal. Raul Jimenez had 2 chances to make it 2, neither taken. Then the equaliser, brilliant from Chris Wood, the only Forest player in the area, beat Robinson, cut inside and then curled it into the bottom left-hand corner. 18th of the season, and Mark, you were talking about number 9s earlier. He is a proper one. Fulham 1, Forest 1.
Absolutely is. Not for the first time this season. Horrible first half for Southampton. Henry Moran.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2. 2 goals in 3 minutes early on from an Atara header and Christie Curley. It could have been several more. Bournemouth afforded so much space at times, just overcomplicating the big opportunities that were presented their way. Southampton on course for a 7th straight defeat at home. They've offered very little, their fans singing in agreement with the jubilant Bournemouth jeers. Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2.
So a wayside lead there, a wayside lead at the London Stadium as well. Lee Blakeman.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1, seconds to go in stoppage time. It should be a much bigger lead for Brentford because Wissers had 2 disallowed for offside. We're ticking towards the break. We've just got a stoppage because of an injury, so it's still West Ham 0, Brentford 1 into first half stoppage time.
OK, they're still playing at Villa Park as well, where Ipswich are holding out with 10 men at the moment. Pat Murphy.
They are. It's 0-0. All Ipswich need to do now is get to half-time. Having lost Twanzebe to his 2nd yellow card inside just about 5 or 6 minutes. Deserved, no complaints about that. This will be a test of McKenna's coaching credentials in the second half if they get into the break all square. Minute to go, it's Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
Earlier in the Premier League, Arsenal won 2-0 at Leicester. Mikel Merino coming on in the second half and being used as an emergency striker, and he got both the goals into the Championship earlier. Cardiff 1, Bristol City 1. Oxford 0, Portsmouth 2. Preston 0, Burnley 0. Half-time at Kenilworth Road. Luton against Sheffield United. Chris Coles.
0-0. The way this game has gone, you'd think Luton were the ones who'd go top with a win rather than Sheffield United. They've been excellent, the home side. The Luton of old, so many chances. Asgard hitting the bar with a wonderful turn and shot. Adebayo missing from 3 yards out. That was a big moment. Such a good opportunity. He blazed it over. Sheffield United really struggling to cope, and they're extremely lucky to still be level. Luton 0, Sheffield United 0.
Goalless at Ewood Park as well. Julia Bold.
Yeah, neither keeper has had to do too much in that first 45 minutes. Blackburn have dominated though when it's come to possession, just not been able to find a goal. Plymouth's hero against Liverpool in the FA Cup, Brian Hardy, suffered a back injury. He tried to play on and had to be subbed off after 20 minutes. I can't see either manager being too happy right now. Half-time, Blackburn 0, Plymouth 0.
Middlesbrough have lost 4 of their last 5 in the Championship, and they're on course for another defeat this afternoon. Charlie Slater.
About to make it 5 from 6 as things stand. Borough 0, Watford 1. Sissoko with a powerful header from 5 yards out from loser's corner. It's been the only thing in the game really, with both teams far from their best, and the Borough fans booing their side off at half-time. It's Middlesbrough 0, Watford 1.
Half-time whistle has gone at Villa, and it is Villa 0, Ipswich 0. Millwall 1, West Brom 1 in the Championship. 10 minutes to go until half-time. Slightly delayed in that game. Elsewhere, and these are all half-times now in the Championship, Hull 1, Norwich 0. Matt Crooks with the goal. Sheffield Wednesday 0, Coventry 1. Ellis Sims with his 6th of the season, and it's goalless between Stoke and Swansea. Earlier in League One, finished Cambridge 0, Exeter 1, and Northampton 0, Wrexham 2. Leaders Birmingham are leading again at the break against informed Charlton. Sani Rajavajula.
Yeah, Jay Stansfield's superb solo goal, the difference. Controversy too when officials missed Charlton's keeper Ashley Maynard-Brewer handling it outside his area. Birmingham had a host of chances, hit the post from a free kick too. Charlton have struggled to hold them. Half-time, Birmingham 1, Charlton 0.
Let's just nip back to the Premier League. Half-time whistle has gone at West Ham. Lee.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1. It should be a much bigger lead though. Sharda scored after 4 minutes. Shot just crossing the line. Goal line technology needed to confirm it. After that, Brentford have had 2 disallowed for offside. Whistle with both. None were allowed to stand. Sharda has hit the post, and West Ham have offered absolutely nothing. Zilch down the other end. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
And just back to Villa Park, Pat Murphy.
Just to confirm, it's 0-0 at half-time. It ended with Liam Delap complaining to the referee about an injury he'd picked up. Let's see how he goes in the second half. Remember, Ipswich will be down to 10 men. Twanzebe sent off for his second yellow card 10 minutes before the break. Villa 0, Ipswich 0.
So as we're looking at the top 3, we heard Birmingham the leaders leading at the break against Charlton. Wrexham earlier 1 at Northampton. Wycombe sandwiched in between them. How are they doing? Betty Glover.
Brilliant start for relegation threatened Crawley. Mark didn't need much time to warm up into this. Will Swan with the opener, a rocket into the top left from the edge of the box, but as expected Wycombe got back into it pretty quickly. Daniel Udo, who's been a big threat in that box, got his reward with the equaliser. I thought Wycombe would have all of the momentum after that, but Crawley are firmly in this. Crawley 1, Wycombe 1.
Elsewhere in League One this afternoon, in the Yorkshire Derby, Barnsley lead Huddersfield by a goal to 0. John Russell got that. 6 for the season for him. Blackpool did take the lead at home to Mansfield, but Mansfield have turned that round and they lead 2-1 at the break. Nigel Clough's side have lost 6 straight in League One. Bristol Rovers lead Burton by a goal to 0. Chris Martin with the goal for the home side there. It's Leyton Orient 2, Lincoln 1. They're still playing there. Sonny Perkins got both of the Leyton Orient goals this afternoon. Lincoln have just scored in the 7th minute of first half stoppage time. Reading 1, Rotherham 0. Harvey Nibbs with his 12th of the season for the home side there. Shrewsbury lead Bolton by a goal to 0. They've gone 3 unbeaten in League One of Gareth Ainsworth's side as they try and pull away from the relegation zone. It's goalless between Stevenage and Peterborough, and Wigan and Stockport. In League 2 earlier, AFC Wimbledon 1, Salford 0. It took them second ahead of the 3 o'clock games. Doncaster 1, Grimsby 2. At 3 o'clock, we're with the leaders Walsall, who once again, Ben Munday, are struggling.
They are on the wobble, Mark. They've only just finished playing the first half. The big talking point here, referee Sonny Gill subbed off injured in first half stoppage. The fourth official now, the referee. They've pulled someone from the crowd to be the fourth. Welcome to League Two. On the pitch, Chesterfield haven't won or scored in the West Midlands in their last 3 league games, but they're halfway to changing that this afternoon. Jamie Grimes heading them ahead. League leaders Walsall have huffed and puffed, but they've lacked rhythm. At the break, Walsall 0, Chesterfield 1.
Elsewhere in League Two, and there are not many goals around. Goalless between Bromley and Fleetwood, and bottom of the table, Carlisle and Colchester. Barrow are a goal up at Cheltenham. It's Gillingham 0, Crewe 0, Harrogate 0, Swindon 0, Morecambe 0, Accrington 0, Newport 0, Bradford 0. Bradford are down to 10 in that game as well. MK Dons, who've won just 2 of the last 13 in all competitions, do lead at the break. They are a goal up at Tranmere. In the National League this afternoon, AFC Fylde 0, Dagenham and Redbridge 1. Barnet 1, Solihull Moors 0. Surprise at Braintree, they lead promotion chasing Forest Green Rovers by 2-0. Eastleigh lead Aldershot 2-0. Goalless between Ebbsfleet, who are bottom of the table, and York. FC Halifax 0, Boston 0. Altrincham are 1-0 up against fellow playoff contenders Gateshead. Hartlepool 0, Maidenhead 0. Oldham 0, Sutton 0. Southend 0, Rochdale 1. Woking 0, Tamworth 0. And Yeovil 1, Wealdstone 1. Into the Scottish Premiership, Dundee United's miserable away record at Celtic looks like continuing, Ailey Barber.
It does indeed, and Brendan Rodgers couldn't have asked for a better game between these two Bayern Munich ties, because United have offered nothing here. Celtic have been so comfortable, enjoying 81% possession, and they've scored twice. First through Callum McGregor, calmly slotting into the bottom corner before Jota doubled the lead with a beautiful curling effort. Schlupp's also hit the post. Ida's been denied by a brilliant save, but this is like a training exercise for Celtic, who made 5 changes coming into it. It is at the break, Celtic 2, Dundee United 0.
Thank you very much. Elsewhere in the Scottish Premiership, Dundee 0, Aberdeen 1, Kilmarnock 1, St Johnstone 0, and Motherwell 0, Ross County 1. In the Championship, the top 2 are meeting this afternoon, and at the break it's Falkirk 1, Ayr 2, so that would take Ayr above Falkirk to top of the table. Livingston 0, Dunfermline 0, Morton 1, Adrionians 1, Queen's Park 0, Hamilton 2, and Wraith 2, Partick Thistle 0. In League One, Alloa 2, Kelty Hearts 0, Cove Rangers 2, Annan 1, Dumbarton 2, Montrose 2, and Queen of the South 0, Arbroath 3. Surprise in League 2 with the leaders East Fife, a goal down at home to Bonnyrigg Rose at the break. Edinburgh City 2, Spartans 0, Peterhead 1, Clyde 1, Stirling 1, Forfar 1, and it's goalless between Stranraer and Elgin. In the United Rugby Championship, we're back to some domestic rugby, although the 2 scores I've got are all involve South African teams, but we've got some domestic rugby with a break in the Six Nations. Lions 30, Stormers 23, and Bulls 7, Sharks 10 at half-time in the United Rugby Championship. It's also the opening round of Super League, and on Sports Extra you can listen to Leeds against Wakefield, and at the moment they're on course for a surprise there, because Leeds are behind at the break. Wakefield promoted to Super League this season, and they lead at Headingley by 14 points to 6. You are up to date with everything. 3 minutes to 4. Here's Stuart Clarkson.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Listen on BBC Sounds.
Mark, thank you. The Foreign Secretary says he would encourage Donald Trump and Ukraine to deepen their partnership. David Lammy's been speaking at a major security conference in Munich in the past hour. Earlier, Ukraine's President Zelensky told delegates Europe should create its own army, after suggesting the US could no longer be relied upon. The family of a British couple being held in Iran say they're focused on trying to ensure the well-being and safety of Craig and Lindsay Foreman. The pair were travelling across the world by motorbike when they were held on their way to the Iranian border with Pakistan. Kent Police have started a murder investigation after a woman was shot dead at a pub near Sevenoaks last night. Officers have recovered a gun from a vehicle at the Dartford crossing and say they're still looking for a male suspect. And the French Coast Guard says a migrant died while crossing the Channel in a small boat overnight. Nearly 70 others on board were rescued.
Vincent Kompany is a Premier League legend.
Goal from the Manchester City captain. They'll remember that for years and years and years. And now he's an up-and-coming head coach who's had a meteoric rise from Anderlecht, promotion and relegation with Burnley, to being appointed at one of the biggest clubs in world football.
Bayern Munich have confirmed the appointment of Vincent Kompany.
It feels like Kompany is the golden boy in football management right now, and I want to find out why.
He's been a trailblazer quite a lot of his life, quite a lot of his career.
This is Football Daily. Vincent Kompany, the golden boy. Listen on BBC Sounds.
This is 5 Live Sport
with Mark Chapman.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Let's bring you some reaction from the early game where Arsenal won 2-0 at Leicester. Mikel Merino came on as a sub, was played up front, got both goals, and afterwards spoke with Guy Mowbray.
Well, Mikel, tell us about your centre-forward history.
Yeah, it was big news for me when this morning one of the assistants just told me that it was an option. It is the first time in my career, well, practically ever, that I play this position. But the good thing is that the way this team plays, I think everybody knows what everybody has to do. So, yeah, I just try to do my best. Mikel told me to just try to use my strengths, be in the box, win duels, try to hold the ball. Yeah, I was in the right place at the right moment, and my teammates put some amazing balls. So 2 goals and, most important, 3 points for the team.
So you've not trained there? You've not played there as a kid, maybe?
Maybe when I was 8, 9 years old, but not since. And I haven't trained there once. So it was just, I think, of the moment. I just tried to emulate all these guys that are injured now and cannot help us. I did my part and really, really happy for the team for the win.
Mikel Merino with Guy Mowbray, who then also spoke to Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Ruud, how frustrating is that? It's another game where you were so close.
Yeah, correct. Thin margins. The chance of Bobby they could overread, just touched by Lewis Kelly. I think with the Jordan Ayew cross you can get up in the game with a goal, lift the spirit, gain momentum, and the crowd as well. I think that was a turning point. They scored late on, 81st. We were in the game for a result and maybe a win. That makes it hard. Yeah, again. Yeah.
What would be your key message to the supporters after this? It's another blow for them, but the logo here is Foxes Never Quit. I guess that was never more key now.
It is, and of course it's ups and downs. And when you are a promoted team and you're fighting for the bottom places, you're gonna have to be able to deal with losing games. But it's a matter of keep going, keep training, keep working on our game model, on our way of playing, and the development is there. And I believe in that sense the results will come one day.
Thanks, Ruud.
Watch everything Match of the Day tonight, 10:25 on BBC One. We're going to go back to the Etihad. Manchester City lead Newcastle by 3-0. So I suppose second half is all about how Pep Guardiola will manage the legs of some of his players ahead of the second leg against Real Madrid this week. Jude Bellingham will get a rest before that takes place at the Bernabeu because he's just been sent off before half-time for foul and abusive language away at Osasuna. Real Madrid leading through a Kylian Mbappe goal, but down to 10 because of Jude Bellingham's red card. I suppose if he's being sent off for foul and abusive language, it shows that his Spanish is coming on. Ian Dennis.
Muy bien, mi amigo. Well, I'll tell you whether there's been any foul and abusive language in the Newcastle United dressing room, because the Newcastle players have been sent out very, very early by Eddie Howe. They're waiting for the Manchester City team to arrive. In fact, only now are Manchester City coming down the steps and through the tunnel. But Newcastle are going to make a double change as well. Livramento will replace Trippier, and Lewis Miley's going to come on for Willock in the midfield.
Yeah, in truth, I think that Eddie Howe could have taken off any of his players. It was such an insipid first half performance, wasn't it? And it's going to be difficult for them to respond in the second half. But Manchester City, they did have a 3-0 lead, was it Champions League?
Final.
Ended up final, yeah. Ended up 3-3, so the next goal still may have a bearing.
Well, we're about to get underway, but before we do, half-time in the Championship at Millwall. Mark Webber.
Yeah, delayed start. Millwall 1, West Brom 1. West Brom equalising when Brian from the Millwall side stopped and messed up his clearance and put it in his own net. The opening goal from Cooper on the 19th minute. Millwall 1, West Brom 1.
So we're underway now here in the second half with Manchester City leading by 3-0. A Marmoush hat-trick in that first half. They've made no changes, so they have Edison in goal, Rico Lewis, John Stones, Husinov, Gvardiol the defence, Foden, Nico Gonzalez, Gundogan, Marmoush, Haaland and Savinho. As Edison again looks for that direct ball up towards Haaland, headed away by Livramento. Manchester City playing then from right to left in their sky blue shirts and white shorts against the Newcastle United side in their change strip, the navy and maroon hoop jerseys and the navy shorts, and they have Dubravka in goal, and now line up with Livramento, Byrne, Cher and Hall as the defence, Miley, Guimaraes and Tonali in the midfield, Murphy, Gordon and Alexander Isak. Chris Sutton.
Yeah, and there we go, Manchester City. Practical, pragmatic. This game started the second half. The ball has gone back to Edison on 2 occasions, and he's kicked it long, way off with his second ball. So we know Manchester City like to play out from the back, but it's all about being effective, and they have been so far this afternoon.
Bromley lead Fleetwood Town by 1-0 in League 2. Cheltenham 0, Barrow 2 is another scoreline in League 2. Norwich City have equalised at Hull City. Hull, who've lost 3 of their last 4. They're in the relegation zone. They were 1-0 ahead, but Norwich have pegged them back, and there are no other goals to tell you about for the usual Saturday goal service on BBC Radio 5 Live, BBC Sounds, and also on the World Service early in the second half. It's a damp afternoon now as Haaland just pulls back at Tonali. It was raining earlier, but Eddie Howe, well, I guess like you say, that the next goal is going to be very important.
Yeah, well it is, but I think Newcastle first half, Eddie Howe will tell you after the game, they just haven't played with the desired intensity really. And with what was at stake, if they won today, getting into that top 4, that would have been massive for Newcastle, but they've still got to believe and hope, and as you say, just the next goal really important.
Dubravka hits the ball long, bounces on the edge of the area. I think Dan Byrne has stayed down on the edge of the Manchester City penalty area, rubbing the back of his head. The referee Andy Madley's got a look at that. He's seen that he's now getting back to his feet. He was always watchful, was the referee, and aware of the situation. Cross comes in, Stones leaps, doesn't get there, comes out towards Murphy, right side of the area, just a couple of yards back from the byline, and Newcastle United get a throw. Pat Murphy at Villa Park.
It's still 0-0, but just to let you know that Marcus Rashford is on in the second half as a substitute for Ramsey, so it'll be interesting to see how he fits in with the Villa pattern. It's Villa 0, Ipswich 0. Remember, Ipswich down to 10 men. Twanzebe sent off.
Yes, Twanzebe sent off. Ipswich Town second bottom. Elsewhere in the Premier League, bottom of the table, Southampton 2-0 down at home to Bournemouth. West Ham 0, Brentford 1, Fulham 1, Nottingham Forest 1. Tomorrow, 5 Live Premier League Sunday, commentary from Anfield, Liverpool Wolves at 2, to be followed by Tottenham Hotspur against Manchester United at 4:30, and then on Tuesday night we're in Munich, and on Wednesday night we're in Madrid for the Champions League playoffs. Games you can hear on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Newcastle United with Hall as a left back, infield Guimaraes, closed down by Gonzalez. Manchester City try and win the ball there with Savinho. That was a strong looking challenge, and Savinho is felled. The Newcastle player is also stayed down as well. Let's see who it is on that far side. It'll be a free kick. The yellow card though is certainly in the right hand of Andy Madley. It's Guimaraes who's down, and I think that he might be shown a yellow card when he gets to his feet.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think he's staying down knowing full well that when he gets up he's going to see a big yellow.
Let's get an update from Craven Cottage. John Southall.
We're 5 minutes played in the second half. Fulham 1, Nottingham Forest 1. Timothy Castagna a moment ago, just on the right of the area, tight angle, got it horribly wrong and put it wide. Fulham 1, Forest 1.
And as the Newcastle captain does indeed get to his feet, he's shown the yellow by Andy Madley, as Manchester City still lead by 3-0. Sports Report will bring you as much live reaction as we possibly can with Mark Chapman. Results and a reaction from 5, and then Crystal Palace Everton at 5:30 is our next commentary on BBC Radio 5 Live. But Manchester City are attacking, and every outfield player is in the Newcastle half away towards our left. There's Stones to Gvardiol on this near side. Livramento looks to try and close him down. Back it goes to Stones. We'll go to West Ham, Lee Blakeman.
Triple change with Brentford leading 1-0 at half-time, made by Graham Potter, Ollie Scholes, James Ward-Prowse and Evan Ferguson all on. Ferguson for his West Ham debut. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Gundogan comes forward, looks to try and get away from Murphy. Livramento leans into him. Pep Guardiola is almost caught by Marmouche there, who then clips the heels of Lewis Miley. 2 Newcastle players, though, are down. And certainly Pep Guardiola, he's as animated as ever, isn't he, in that technical area?
No, he is. I think he's frustrated that there wasn't a foul awarded to Gundogan shoulder to shoulder with Livramento, who eased Gundogan out of the way. I don't think it was a foul, but Pep animated, fired up. It's been a strange old season for Manchester City, and Pep's not used to being in this position, is he?
No, he's not. 41 points from 24 is the fewest points at this stage of a season under Pep. Kenilworth Road now, Chris Coles.
Luton 0, Sheffield United 0. A much brighter Sheffield United performance in this second half, and they've just hit the post. Ben Brereton Diaz on the slide at the back post. Luton 0, Sheffield United 0.
Newcastle United on the halfway line take the free kick short. Livramento now decides to burst forward and he slips it into Murphy. Early cross comes in. There's a good ball in and Stone sees it behind for a corner kick as we nip to Southampton and Henry Moran.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2. 2 changes at the break from Southampton. Sugawara and Ugachukwu come on. They're looking to get back into this. Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2.
Newcastle United are looking to get back into this, but they've got a long way to go as they trail by 3-0. They've got a corner kick. Hall to take it right hand side, left footed, deep towards the far post, and headed behind for another corner. Chris.
There's Gvardiol who got up well, but brighter start to the second half from Newcastle. They had to really come out and play with more energy, and Livramento down that right hand side has given them that.
So the corner is on the other side, the left. It's an in-swinger, Gordon to take it. There was Gundogan with his header out at the near post. Cher plays it back. Gordon lifts the ball back in. Headed out once more. And then headed back by Hall. Off the chest of Rico Lewis. And he looks for the ball early towards Savinho. But there was Livramento, the substitute on the halfway line. He plays it to Gordon. Awkward one to control at around waist height for the outstretched right leg of the fair-haired Anthony Gordon. Morecambe lead Accrington Stanley by 1-0 in League Two. Morecambe 1, Accrington Stanley 0. Back to West Ham, Lee Blakeman.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1, but West Ham should be level. Evan Ferguson with a great low cross into the area, and Kudus has just cleared the bar from 8 yards. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
New Rugby League season, of course, underway, and currently on Sports Extra we've got live coverage of Huddersfield against Warrington. And later on, we'll have boxing for you on 5 Live. In fact, it's within the Etihad campus. It's at the arena, a stone's throw away from here. 5 Live boxing at 9. Jack Catterall against Arnold Barbosa. We'll be live after you, and Robbie are taking the calls on 606.
Yeah, what a night to look forward to.
Ball through the middle, looking to Isak, who was a little flat-footed. It runs through towards Edison. Incidentally, Leeds 6, Wakefield 14 is a half-time score of the Super League game. As Dundee 0, Aberdeen 2 is a latest score. And it's Harrogate 1, Swindon Town 0 is another latest. As here is Gvardiol looking for Foden, tries to take it into the penalty area. Livramento there will take it away off his toes. Livramento penned back in by Foden. Lewis Miley, another of the Newcastle substitutes, will get a throw, and it goes out of play for a throw. Chris.
Savinho's been a delight, hasn't he, this afternoon, coming in off that right-hand side and switching the play. The more I see of him, Ian, the more I like him. I think Pep's demanding greater consistency from his performances, but he looks a player.
Ball from the penalty area. Byrne caught in possession on the edge of his 6-yard box by Haaland. Haaland now right-hand side of the penalty area. Back to Savinho, who shoots low, and Dubravka with a comfortable save. So in fact it's Leeds Wakefield, which is the commentary on Sports Extra. Let's go to Ewood Park. Julia Bold.
It is now Blackburn 1, Plymouth 0. Adam Forshaw with the goal. He got it on his right foot with his back to goal, spun around and hit it into the back of the net. Blackburn 1, Plymouth 0.
Dundee 1, Aberdeen 2, and you're up to date with the goals as they go in on BBC Radio 5 Live. 10 minutes though in the second half. Newcastle United give the ball away cheaply midway through their own half once again. Picked up by Savinho, bursts forward, crosses from the right, headed away by Byrne, drops on the edge of the area. Isak running back, only presents it towards Marmouche. Gvardiol now can come forward on this near side, the left. Gvardiol can't deliver the cross, but off the outstretched right leg of Murphy, it does indeed go behind for a corner kick to the home team, who lead 3-0.
Yeah, Gvardiol, such a brilliant attacking option at left back for Manchester City. Goals and assists this season. Extremely tall left back, but boy can he play.
So Manchester City have a corner on this near side, the left. That Mamouche hat-trick in the first half is still the difference. Newcastle United have got everybody back inside their own penalty area. Foden to take it near side the left-footed. It's an away swinger. Haaland height rises, and his header is straight at Dubravka. Where will we go next then on 5 Live? It will be Southampton and Henry Moran.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2. A couple of stunning saves from Aaron Ramsdale in the Southampton goal. First to deny Semenyo tipping over, and then hauling the ball back from almost over the line from Christie's header. It remains Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2.
Rotherham United are level at Reading in League One. Reading 1, Rotherham United 1. Guimaraes for Newcastle United. Loses it, then goes in pursuit of Savinho, who will try and outstrip Hall and succeeds. Savinho goes away from Hall, who is forced to make a sliding challenge, and out of play it goes for a throw.
Yeah, Hall, to his credit, stuck with Savinho extremely well there. That was the old get it out of your feet from Savinho, push it 30-40 yards and get there first, but Hall slid and made the challenge, but he's been given the runaround, hasn't he, all afternoon. Savinho really intelligent, taking it outside, inside. Lewis Hall in a spin.
Savinho's had an eye-catching afternoon on the right-hand side. Brazilian signed from Troyes. Stevenage 1, Peterborough United 0 is the latest score in League One. Manchester City leading 3-0. Here is Stones, midway through the Newcastle half. Out to Gvardiol on the left-hand side. Back it goes to Stones. Stones looks for the run of Foden through the middle. Headed away by Cher. Goal at Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
To Ipswich Town. 10 men, Ipswich Town. Liam Delap, a smart right-footed side foot from an excellent low cross by Hutchinson. This after Twain-Zabey was sent off 10 minutes before half-time. Villa 0, Ipswich 1.
Wow. What a scoreline and what a result that could be. Down to 10 men, as Pat says. Manchester City are attacking. This is Gundogan. Side onto goal. Played it back. Gonzalez forward. Foden keeps his balance, runs into the penalty area. Drifts out towards that right-hand side. Back towards Savinho. Newcastle United defending deep. The champions, though, are 3-0 up. Gonzalez plays it out towards Savinho. Right-hand side, level of the box. Back it goes then to Gonzalez at a walking pace for Manchester City. And all of a sudden they look to accelerate. Opens up for Foden, shoots, blocked. Comes out, edge of the area, and then it will fall towards Isak. Turns, plays it out now towards Gordon. Newcastle United on the counter. But the Manchester City sky blue shirts are flooding back. Gordon looks for the run inside of Isak. And then Isak tries to play it back to Gordon. But look at that, Manchester City, 6-7 shirts already back.
Absolutely. That desire's there. And you talked about the game being at walking pace from Manchester City, but Newcastle players not getting up to the ball, not putting them under pressure. They're playing at will, really.
Murphy, right-hand side of the penalty area towards Tonali. In comparison, Newcastle are looking rather one-paced as the ball is back with Murphy once more. Livramento, Miley playing in front of Manchester City. Livramento, though, cuts inside now, looks for a shooting opportunity. Hall plays it. Here is Lewis. Miley to shoot. It was moving in the air, turned away by the hands of Edison. Best chance that Newcastle United have created, and maybe with an hour played, just a warning there for Manchester City.
Yeah, absolutely. I was surprised Livramento didn't take the shot on when he got inside the box, but he popped it back, and then Miley went for power with his left foot, and Edison straight at him.
Murphy checks on the inside of Marmouche to Miley. Miley right-hand side. Guimaraes encouraging for Newcastle United. Probably the first encouraging passage of play for a beleaguered Eddie Howe all afternoon, and then they lose the ball and they leave themselves vulnerable as Foden picks it up in the centre circle. Haaland tries to check his run to stay onside. Foden has to go out wide as Haaland was knocked to the floor. He finds Savinho. Savinho cuts inside and it will go behind for a corner kick. Let's get new to that Walsall goal. Ben Mundy.
Walsall 1, Chesterfield 1. That'll settle the nerves of the League Two leaders. Corner work to the back post, kept alive, and Jamil Matt swivelled and smacked it in for his 11th of the season. Walsall 1, Chesterfield 1.
2 goals in the Scottish Premiership. At Rugby Park, it's Kilmarnock 2, St Johnstone 0, and at Fir Park, Motherwell 0, Ross County 2. And Cheltenham have got a goal back at home to Barrow. That's in League 2. Cheltenham 1, Barrow 2. You're up to date. We'll wait for this corner kick for Manchester City, as the hat-trick hero, Marmoush, gets a standing ovation, and after this we'll go to Craven Cottage. But we've been playing for just over an hour. You're listening to 5 Live, the World Service and BBC Sounds. And it's Manchester City 3, Newcastle United 0. Huddersfield and the Yorkshire Derby at Oakwell, incidentally, have got an equaliser. Barnsley 1, Huddersfield Town 1. So the ball is placed down by Marmoush on that far side, the right. City are playing from right to left as we look. Sky blue shirts, white shorts. This should be an out-swinging corner. Haaland waits as it arcs its way over, drops outside the area. Gundogan collects it, goes in field, short ball towards Foden, left-footed chipped into the penalty box, headed out by Newcastle, only as far as Guardiola, rolls it in and plays the ball into the penalty area and then volleyed away by Cher. Come in, John Southall.
Fulham 1, Forest 1. Fulham have a corner on the right-hand side. They're pressing for this second goal. Traore on the right of the area, deflected wide his shot. And Lukic a moment ago, again saved by the keeper Sells. Corner comes over. Here's a header on the back post. And it's in. Fulham have the lead. Bassi at the back post has headed into the bottom corner. You can't say it wasn't coming. Fulham 2, Forest 1.
And Walsall are now leading Chesterfield by 2-1. Walsall 2, Chesterfield 1 at the top of League 2. Free kick given away by Haaland on Guimaraes, and he wants to take it quickly, but the referee says it's not in the exact position. It's got to come back 10 yards.
Yeah, far from Haaland there. I suppose from Eddie Howe's point of view, he would have been, or he will be really disappointed with Newcastle application and just even the speed there to take this free kick. Lack of urgency all afternoon from them. Maybe they're shell-shocked to be this far behind, but the performance has been so flat.
Bolton Wanderers have got an equaliser at Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury 1, Bolton 1 in League 1. Newcastle are attacking, cleared though away by Rico Lewis on the half volley, and the referee has given a free kick to Manchester City. So news of Walsall now leading from Ben.
This one has turned on its head in a blink of an eye. Walsall 2, Chesterfield 1. Another corner, another header. Harrison heading it home. Ellis Harrison back in the starting lineup again this afternoon. It's Walsall 2, Chesterfield 1.
Sheffield Wednesday have equalised at home to Coventry City in the Championship, and also in the Championship there's been a goal. Stoke City 0, Swansea City 1. Stoke only 1 win in their last 7, and it's Swansea City who've taken the lead in the Potteries. Let's get the team news from Selhurst Park. John Murray.
3 changes for Palace from the FA Cup at Doncaster, just the one from their last league match when they won at Old Trafford, and that is Devaney, who scored at Doncaster, in for Kamada. Eza, Wharton and Chilwell also on the bench. Everton make 2 changes from the derby. Doucouré is suspended and Jai's injured, so Harrison and Alcaraz for his full debut come in.
Mark Schwarzer will be alongside John. Commentary at 5:30. Everton certainly go into that game in good heart, unbeaten in 4 in the Premier League. Huddersfield Town have now got a second. Barnsley 1, Huddersfield Town 2, and Kilmarnock are leading St Johnstone by 3-0 at Rugby Park. Manchester City leading 3-0. Attack near side. Guardiola on the left, playing from right to left. Runs forward midway through the Newcastle half, slows it down, passes the ball in towards Gonzalez. It's almost as if that chance for Lewis Miley has just given Manchester City a little reminder.
Yeah, absolutely, but they broke well there. I think they've gone back to basics this afternoon, I really do. Newcastle once again pressing Manchester City high. Ball goes back to Ederson, one long ball down the field, 2-on-2. Mamouche and Haaland up against Byrne and Shah. It's about getting that confidence back for them, finding their rhythm again, but also playing smart football.
But also giving certainly the confidence ahead of that trip to the Bernabeu midweek, with De Bruyne on the bench, Doku's on the bench, Bernardo Silva. So an opportunity to and Kovacic to rest a few. Certainly it's been a very good performance from Savinho and Marmouche as Manchester City keep the ball with Foden. Start of the second half, you just sensed they were almost playing within themselves because it was so comfortable. But that Lewis Miley shot, and Edison actually did well to push away, didn't it? It was a little bit of movement in the air.
Well, it was straight at him, wasn't it? I mean, if he'd let that in, then yeah, I would have been surprised.
But it did move in the air.
It moved a tiny bit, didn't it?
I'm going to call into 606 later on and put on an accent and say what a good save it was.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on.
I mean, it was, straight at him.
Yeah.
But it did move in the air. It wasn't a routine save the way that he did it.
That's what he has done well. Wow, what a ball that is.
Yeah, I'm glad you changed the conversation. Long ball goes up towards Marmouche, brings it under control. There's a little step over, dancing around the ball. Dan Burn now goes to hassle him and harass him, and eventually fouls him as well. And Dan Burn then throws his hand in disgust at referee Andy Madley as he picks up the ball, and Marmouche just sits on the wet turf. So the ball is rolled towards Marmouche, and Manchester City get a free kick.
Dan Burn fired up. The Newcastle giant at the back. I think he's overzealous there with the challenge. Quite right for the foul to be awarded to Marmouche. No rush to take the free kick. It's about managing this game now for Manchester City.
You're like John Murray. You like a Marmouche, don't you? The way that you emphasise the moosh. Blackpool 1, Mansfield Town 3 is the latest score. It's a free kick to City. They
Marmouche over it.
And Foden. Let's see who takes it. It will be Marmouche. Right footed, kills it in, flicked on by Gvardiol. It's going to come out towards Savinho, right corner of the area, plays it back to Lewis. Shrewsbury 1, Bolton Wanderers 2, Stoke City 1, Swansea City 1. So Stoke weren't behind for long in the Championship as Gundogan plays the ball out towards Savinho. And we're approaching the midway point of the second half, and Manchester City still have that first half lead. The 3-0 lead is still very much intact as Stones will now carry the ball midway through the Newcastle half. He comes to a standstill 30 yards out from goal, passes it short and square, and then Marmouche took his eye off the ball and it went out and
under his boot, didn't it? I'll tell you what's quite interesting, Nico Gonzalez, we actually haven't seen a lot of him today. I'd love to know how many touches he's had, but he's gone about his business pretty efficiently and quietly, just sitting in front of that back four, breaking the play for Manchester City.
23-year-old Spanish midfielder making his Premier League debut. £50 million they signed him last month from Porto, formerly of Barcelona and Valencia. But he can either play as the deep-lying midfielder, or Pep Guardiola, if he so wishes, to play him in more of an advanced role. But he saw a lot of the ball early on, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think it's a consequence of the way Manchester City have mixed the game up. When the ball has gone back, Edison has been fairly direct, but there's no doubting that the position he's playing today has plonked himself in front of that Manchester City back four, cleaning things up.
Haaland looking to link up with Foden. I think you'd be surprised as to how many touches he's had. I think he's been quietly effective for Manchester City. But again, you might disagree with me.
No, not quite sure. How many would you assume? There's another touch. I mean, he's had more touches the longer the game has gone on.
He's actually had the most touches.
Has he?
78.
But how many? But the question isn't that. How many would he have had? How many would Rodri have had at this stage of a game had he been playing? Probably double.
Well, now you're nitpicking. Let's get an update from West Ham. Lee Blakeman.
I'm sorry to interrupt this. West Ham 0, Brentford 1. Half chances for West Ham to equalise. Paqueta deflected over, Ferguson deflected wide, and Scales has had a good shot blocked as well. Scales, that is. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Peterborough level at Broadhall Way. Stevenage 1, Peterborough 1 is the latest score in League One. Manchester City still lead by 3-0. Savinho right hand side held up by Lewis Hall. It would seem that attack that Newcastle had, that Lewis Miley, where he tested Edison, was just going to be one sporadic effort. They haven't been able to build on it since then. Manchester City have just reasserted their control. We'll go to Southampton. Henry Moran.
Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2. Scrappy second half this. Bournemouth could have got a third. Southampton just building into it a little bit. Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2.
Crystal Palace Everton commentary to come on 5:30 after Sports Report on 5 Live. 20 minutes remain as offside against Anthony Gordon, free kick to Manchester City.
Yeah, he has had a really quiet game. You'll probably come up with some stat-based thing telling me how many touches he's had, but he's been really ineffective, hasn't he, Anthony Gordon? And Alexander Isak, talk about the Newcastle firepower before the game, haven't fired this afternoon.
Cheltenham 2, Barrow 2. Craven Cottage, John Southall.
Fulham 2, Nottingham Forest 1. Forest have a free kick over on the far side. They're going for this now. Callum Hudson-Odoi's come in as the free kick is punched away. Hudson-Odoi is on the pitch after a lengthy injury. So you've got Hudson-Odoi, you've got Elanga, you've got Gibbs-White, and you've got Woods. Fulham 2, Forest 1.
Harvey Barnes is back on the bench for Newcastle United. There is activity down below, but it looks like Wilson and Longstaff are the two who's going to be coming on. There's been a goal at Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
Equaliser to Aston Villa. Rashford with the free kick, hit the post. Watkins volleying in, left foot, couldn't miss. Villa 1, Ipswich 1.
So the 10 men of Ipswich Town unable to hang on. Villa are back level. Fulham still lead Forest 2-1. Southampton 0, Bournemouth 2, West Ham 0, Brentford 1. And it will be Longstaff who's going to come on for Guimaraes, and Gordon is going to be the one going off for Callum Wilson as Newcastle attack. And Gordon now picks it up on that far side, the left, cuts inside to the penalty area, but again can't stay on side.
Well, that's twice now in succession, Anthony Gordon, and he's looking along the line. I mean, a professional player shouldn't be caught out. I've got to say, I think that's just looking at that decision as a harsh one. I think John Stones in the middle may have been playing him on, so I'll take back what I said there, but the first one was careless. Here come the substitutions from Newcastle, just to inject a bit of life into the team, really. This is as flat Ian as I've seen them in a long time.
Well, anybody who's seen their performances of late, where they've won 12 of the 14, this is a bit of a shock to the system for Newcastle United. Meanwhile, there's been a goal at St Mary's. Henry Moran.
Southampton have a goal back. Southampton 1, Bournemouth 2. What a finish as well. Kamaldeen Sulemana driving into the bottom corner. It's Southampton 1, Bournemouth 2.
Newcastle United then, who have got that dreadful record here. Manchester City have won the last 15 at home. Only 3 clubs have had longer runs in top flight history. And in fact, Manchester City are going to move level with Manchester United against Luton, which is 16, as is Aston Villa against Sheffield United. And the only run which has a longer run of consecutive wins at home in top flight history is Everton against Fulham of 22, which was between 1961 and 2018.
Who were those other 3 you were talking about?
That was in terms of goals being scored, if you were paying attention, which you clearly were not. And I hope you pay more attention to 606 when the calls come in on 08085909693. Can't keep having Robbie helping to bail you out all the time. There's Doku who's going to be coming on for Manchester City. And Marmoush is the player who's going to be going off. I've got to say, I've never enjoyed watching Omar Marmoush, as Jeremy Doku, who hasn't actually played since January the 19th, is going to get a valuable run out here for the next 16, 17 minutes or so. Again, another option for Pep Guardiola, who will certainly be encouraged by this performance ahead of the trip to Spain in midweek. A game, incidentally, you can hear live on BBC Radio 5 Live. Chris Sutton.
Absolutely. Just the Newcastle changes. Alexander Isak has gone out onto that left-hand side where Anthony Gordon was playing.
Foden looked for Haaland, just too far ahead of him, picked up by Dubravka. That was the ooh and the ah in the background from the City supporters in that end, away towards the left, where those building works continue to take shape, don't they, with the redevelopment work that is taking place, the cranes that tower in the grey skies, the stand of that top tier. Already you can start to see the concrete and the yellow brickwork already starting to form. As the ball is cleared away by Dubravka up towards Wilson, scored his first goal of the season from an injury-ravaged campaign against Birmingham last week in the FA Cup. Blackpool have got a goal back, Blackpool 2, Mansfield Town 3 is the latest score in League One, and then Stones comfortably sees the ball back to Edison, and Manchester City continue to be as impressive as they lead 3-0 with a quarter of an hour to go.
Yeah, and Callum Wilson, it's all about Ian, isn't it? Keeping him fit. We know he's a goal scorer. We know he's a brilliant asset for Newcastle United, but doesn't ever stay fit for long enough. And certainly not in recent seasons. And Savino drawing another foul. Absolutely brilliant. Lets the ball come into him, leaves it completely. Hall is too tight. Lets the ball run through his legs and wins the free kick. Here come the changes for City.
So the hat-trick hero Marmoush departs to a standing ovation, and the other player who's going to be coming off is Phil Foden as McAtee and Doku come on.
Yeah, what a game he's had, Marmoush. Brilliant hat-trick, making his mark. Doku will come on to that left-hand side, and Phil Foden has looked sharp today, this afternoon. McAtee coming on for him. I think that'll just be a like-for-like swap. McAtee looking to make his mark now. Little cameo.
Stoke City 2, Swansea City 1. Osasuna have actually got an equaliser from the penalty spot against the 10 men of Real Madrid after Bellingham's sending off. So that's 1-1 in Spain. We'll get an update from Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
Villa 1, Ipswich 1. The roof may well be falling on Ipswich shortly. The chances are piling up. Rogers' header palmed away by Palmer. Fine save. And then Asensi just now over the bar, leaning back 10 yards out. Should have scored. Villa 1, Ipswich 1.
14 minutes to go. And Manchester City are still leading 3-0, Chris.
Yeah, it's quite a posh way of saying Osasuna. You just said, is that not quite posh? I thought so.
Good luck if you want to call into 606 later on. He's in one of those moods. And I know what you're thinking, isn't he always? And to which I would agree. But take him to task with anything you wish. Let's get an update from the Riverside. Charlie Slater.
Where Middlesbrough continue to trail by a 0-0 against Watford, but they've just hit the post. Rav van den Berg with a header at the back stick, glances it off the woodwork. All Borough now, but still trailing 1-0.
Cheltenham Town 3, Barrow 2 is the latest score in League 2. We've got about 13 minutes remaining. So we're approaching that part of a Saturday afternoon where we'll go through all the scores to keep you up to date as the ball strikes the back of the head of Haaland towards Doku. Keeps his strength and keeps his balance to lay the ball out towards Guardiola on the left-hand side. Back it goes then to the Belgian, the substitute Doku on this near side, the left. Level with the penalty area with City leading by 3-0. Crewe Alexandra are down to 10. Ryan Cooney has been sent off as they are still drawing away at Gillingham. Gillingham 0, Crewe 0. But they're going to see out the closing 13 minutes or so, or 15 minutes or so, with 10 men at Priestfield. Craven Cottage now, John Southall.
Fulham 2, Forest 1. Fulham have a corner on the right hand side, but Forest showing a bit more threat now. Hudson-Odoi on the left of the area, straight at Leno. Fulham 2, Forest 1.
BBC Radio 5 live with 12 minutes remaining of normal time. Sports Report at 5 on its way. There's Manchester City with Gonzalez getting another touch in the midfield to add to the many that he's already had so far today. There's been a goal at Ewood. Julia Bold.
It is now Blackburn 2, Plymouth 0, and it's Tyrese Dolan that has doubled the lead around about the penalty spot area, and he just smashed the ball in the back of the net. Blackburn 2, Plymouth 0.
David Lowe in caretaker charge, and Plymouth had an excellent week, beating Liverpool and hammering Millwall in midweek, but coming to an end in East Lancashire. Blackburn 2, Plymouth 0, and there's now been a goal at Kenilworth Road. Chris Coles.
The league leaders, as they are now with this goal, take the lead. Sheffield United in front. Arnold Ahmedhodzic completely unmarked inside the box, finds the bottom corner to make it Luton 0, Sheffield United 1.
Chris Wilder's side looking for a 7th win in 8 games, and that would indeed take them top. Leeds United play Sunderland on Monday night, and Luton Town would still be rooted to the bottom of the Premier League as Pep Guardiola makes a point of whipping up the crowd once more. McAtee looks for a short through ball towards Haaland, dug out by Livramento, and Newcastle United, well, they've rarely threatened Manchester City.
Yeah, it's not been the combinations and that understanding. Pep was reporting Kusanov there, that right centre half of Manchester City, for going all the way into midfield, jumping into midfield and taking the ball off Livramento.
Newcastle United, who have been tame and tepid, have got a free kick on that far side, the left, which has left Pep Guardiola shaking his head in bemusement.
Remember the Faulty Towers? That was a Basil Faulty impression, that, from Pep, hands on head. He's incredulous, isn't he? He's kicking, heading, tackling every ball.
Blackpool 3, Mansfield Town 3 is the latest score in League One. So this free kick for Newcastle United with 10 minutes remaining, even by Manchester City's standards of throwing away goals, you cannot see them throwing away 3 with the 10 minutes that remain. Tranmere Rovers 1, MK Dons 1. In comes the free kick, goes deep all the way through. Byrne keeps his balance and will get a throw off the legs of Lewis, deep inside the Manchester City half, as we will go around and get the latest scores. And we'll start off in Scotland, where Celtic are going to go 16 points clear of Rangers. They lead Dundee United by 2-0. Commentary from Munich on Tuesday, incidentally, of their return leg against Bayern in that Champions League playoff tie. Dundee 1, Aberdeen 2, Kilmarnock 3 against bottom of the table St Johnstone 0, and Motherwell 0, Ross County 2 is the latest scoreline at Fir Park. 9 minutes remain. Newcastle go back to Dubravka. The two results in League 2. We'll start off in League 2. AFC Wimbledon going second after beating Salford by 1-0. Doncaster Rovers missing such an opportunity, beaten at home by Grimsby Town 2-1. These are the latest scores in League 2. Bromley 1, Fleetwood 0, Carlisle 0, Colchester United 0, Cheltenham 3, Barrow 2, Gillingham 0, the 10 men of Crewe 0, Harrogate Town leads Swindon by 1-0, Morecambe are leading Accrington Stanley by 1-0, Bradford City, who were sent down to 10 men with Jack Shepherd sending off inside 17 minutes, still drawing 0-0 away at Newport County. Tranmere 1, MK Dons 1, and the leaders Walsall, who were behind, are now leading Chesterfield by 2-1, which would be their first win in 6. Chris Sutton.
Yeah, just for a moment, Livramento had made a really excellent run from the right-hand side, quite a high line from Manchester City, and the long ball in behind, and he nearly brought that down, and he would have been one-on-one with Ederson. Here's that press from Newcastle again, and guess what? Ederson has played this one short.
Plays it short, and Gvardiol just plays it down the line and actually manages to find McAtee in loads of space on this near side, the left, towards Doku. Cher dives in and Doku takes it away past him, and he's away at pace. There is Doku, and Doku now left hand side of the area, cuts back onto his right foot, rolls it to the edge of the area. Here is Savinho. Savinho looks to shoot, takes a deflection, goes behind for a corner kick to Manchester City, who lead 3-0.
Yeah, Doku on that left, jinking, chopping back on his right foot. Elects to pick the pass to Savinho, who controls the ball with the sole of his boot and tries to bend it left-footed from a central position 22 yards out. Takes the deflection, no rush for Gundogan. Come over and take this corner. He's been efficient this afternoon.
Lincoln City have got a goal back at Brisbane Road. Lake Orient 2, Lincoln City 2, and also in League 1, Shrewsbury 1, Bolton Wanderers 3 is the latest score. Gundogan then places the ball down. Manchester City, sky blue shirts, white shorts, playing from right to left as we look. Gundogan then get ready to take it, right-footed in towards the near post, flicked on by Haaland and touched in by a tumbling McAtee. And Manchester City have got a fourth goal. They will head to Madrid in high spirits. Manchester City 4, Newcastle United 0.
And the day just gets worse for Newcastle. Got to say, it's all about Haaland's strength to win the flick. And he flicks it. It's a right-footed in-swinging corner from Gundogan. Just floated in. Haaland helps the ball on, and McAtee. It's a really innovative finish from McAtee. It's behind him, hooks it in left-footed. 4-0, Manchester City, home and dry.
A goal at Southampton, Henry Moran.
That'll do it for Bournemouth. Southampton 1, Bournemouth 3 to goal for Tavernier. So much space, driving the ball beyond Ramsdale. Southampton 1, Bournemouth 3.
Wigan Athletic 0, Stockport County 1 is a latest scoreline. So Stockport County looking to put pressure on the teams above them. In the two results earlier today, Cambridge 0, Exeter City 1, Northampton 0, Wrexham 2. So Wrexham at that stage moves within a point of Wycombe, but Wycombe are still drawing. So Birmingham City, the leaders, are 1-0 up at home to Charlton. Barnsley 1, Huddersfield Town 2 is the latest score. Blackpool 3, Mansfield 3. Bristol Rovers 1, Burton 1. Crawley 1, Wycombe 1 is still that latest scoreline. Leyton Orient 2, Lincoln 2. Reading 1, Rotherham 1. Shrewsbury 1, Bolton 3. Stevenage 1, Peterborough 1. And that Stockport goal at Wigan Athletic. They lead by a goal to 0. As we will go to West Ham United and Lee Blakeman.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1, so close to an equaliser. Evan Ferguson on as a sub on his debut, edge of the area, tried a low shot, good save Flecken. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Manchester City are going to make a triple change. We are going to say Vitor Reis, Kovacic and Nico O'Reilly coming on now that the game is safe for Manchester City.
Haaland's just down holding his right knee. Now this, the Pep must be thinking about taking him off with the importance of the game in the week, and he looks to be in a fair bit of discomfort.
Well, this could be the only thing to be a blot on the copybook for Manchester City for what otherwise has been a perfect afternoon. A clean sheet, 3 points, 4 goals, a very impressive performance. And Haaland, though, is down holding his right leg as the triple change waits to make. We will go to Fulham. John Southall.
Well, Fulham lead Forest by 2 goals to 1. Could have been 3. Troy at the back post just falling as he hit it into the ground. Saved by Sells. Have Forest got anything left? They've got a corner over on the far side. 4 minutes to play. Fulham 2, Forest 1.
Bristol Rovers 1, Burton 1. Burton have got an equaliser there at League One, and Celtic have got a third goal. Adam Eder has scored. We'll get news of that from Ailey very, very soon. But Haaland is still getting treatment from the physios.
Yeah, and there's a few players looking over to the bench, looking a little bit concerned. I mean, why would Pep take a chance here and leave him on? It's good to see he's back on his feet with the medical staff, but I think he's must be walking straight off here. He is doing.
And the good thing is that he is walking freely, but they're not going to take any risks, and why would they? Let's get news on that third goal from Celtic with Ailey.
The absolute pick of the bunch this afternoon. A stunning strike from Adam Eder right into the top corner. No chance for Jack Walton in the Dundee United goal. His last kick of the ball, he's gone off, but it's Celtic 3, Dundee United 0.
Kovacic comes in for Gundogan whilst the other changes are taking place. We'll go to Pat Murphy at Villa Park.
It's still 1-1 here. Ipswich, 10-man Ipswich defending devotedly, not least of all their keeper Palmer. His Premier League debut at the age of 28. He's made some splendid saves in the second half. Villa 1, Ipswich 1.
So Kovacic has come on for Ilkay Gundogan. Nico O'Reilly, the tall midfielder, has also come on, as has Vitor Reis, which is his Premier League debut. With 3 minutes remaining, Vardiol has gone off, and the other Manchester City player who has left the field of play will have been, just looking at it now, Nico Gonzalez. No, Gonzalez is still on there. Haaland, of course. Haaland was the other player. So they were the changes, taking no risks. Morecambe 2, Accrington Stanley 0. Stockport County have got a second goal. Wigan 0, Stockport County 2. Give you the latest scores in the Championship. We've done those in League One. We've got about 2 minutes remaining. Latest scores in the Championship. The results were Cardiff 1, Bristol City 1, Oxford 0, Portsmouth 2, Preston 0, Burnley 0. Yet another clean sheet for Burnley. Latest scores: Blackburn Rovers 2, Plymouth 0, Hull 1, Norwich 1, Luton Town 0, Sheffield United 1. Sheffield United going top. Middlesbrough 0, Watford 1, Millwall 1, West Bromwich Albion 1, Sheffield Wednesday 1, Coventry City 1, and Stoke City have come from behind and lead Swansea by 2 goals to 1. Livramento with a back pass towards Dubravka. Dubravka passes the ball out wide to this near side.
Yeah, clever little ball round the corner from McAtee, who's now playing as you call him a false 9. A clever ball into Doku, but foot race with Livramento. He's got great pace and got back.
Emil Kraft is going to be coming on for Alexander Isak very, very soon. 90 seconds remaining. Pep Guardiola still patrolling and marching in that technical area. We'll try and bring you the live reaction into Sports Report with Mark Chapman from 5 before we go to Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace against Everton. But Newcastle United really have been second best in large parts today.
Been flat as anything in it. I hope, earlier when I asked you the question, Isak or Haaland, I hope you haven't sort of put Isak on a bit of a downer now after you saying you take Isak.
I'm not Robbie Savage, I don't change my mind.
Saying He's been very, very quiet, hasn't he, this afternoon?
Yeah.
Hasn't had a lot of service.
Well, it was Marmoush who scored the goals, though, wasn't it? I don't think Haaland's had a shot on target, has he?
He's had an assist. Yeah. In terms of fantasy football, that's quite important.
Not if you're John Murray, it's not. Morecambe 2, Accrington Stanley 0. Isak comes off, Kraft comes on. And we've got how much added on time will there be? We'll find out with the fourth official. He's working on overboard. 4 minutes of added on time, which we're about to go into.
Yeah, and I mean Manchester City home and dry for Newcastle. It's about trying to get back on track in the next game. Haven't seen too many performances as flat from Eddie Howe's team this season, but I've got to say, as bad as they have been, Manchester City have been sharp, hungry. They've been pretty phenomenal the way they've played. Just not been enough for Pep's team this season, this type of performance, this intensity.
Incidentally, Vitor Reis was going to come on until that injury to Haaland, and it was actually Mateus Nunes who come on, and because they'd used their full complement, the fifth substitute, Vitor Reis was then denied the option of making his Premier League debut. So Mateus Nunes is the one who's come on for Haaland as into stoppage time. 4 minutes of added on time, and Manchester City's desire levels still haven't diminished at all, as O'Reilly, the substitute, was quick to curb a Newcastle attack on the right-hand side.
No, Nico Gonzalez is just given that bit of stability to them. Hasn't had loads of touches this afternoon on the ball, but
he has, though. That is a blatant lie. He has.
That's a bit of sarcasm. I know he has. Yeah.
In all seriousness, what will this performance for Manchester City do ahead of the trip to Madrid?
Well, they can go into that game with a bit of confidence. A lot of changes today, but I think it's important to win this emphatically against a Newcastle team who have been pretty sensational under Eddie Howe this season. So look, they're far better going into this massive game against Madrid on Wednesday after a performance like this. So it feels like a big result for Manchester City, and of course they now leapfrog Chelsea in terms of the Premier League.
Yes, they do. They go on to 44 points. Start of the day, of course, 16 points off the leaders, who they will play, in fact, next weekend, a game you'll be able to hear on BBC Radio 5 Live next Sunday at home to Liverpool, after we brought you commentary in the Champions League in midweek. Coventry City have bagged themselves an injury time winner, it might appear. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Coventry City 2, Motherwell 0, Ross County 3, Ross County 2, Burton 1. Our latest scores elsewhere around the grounds as we go to Villa Park. Pat Murphy.
Still 1-1. There are 4 minutes of added injury time on now as Palmer still stands firm and his defence in the Ipswich goal. 10 men, don't forget. It's Villa 1, Ipswich 1.
Fulham 2, Forest 1, Southampton 1, Bournemouth 3. What's the latest at West Ham? Lee Blakeman.
West Ham 0, Brentford 1. West Ham still searching for that equaliser. It's just fallen to young Ollie Scholes. Edge of the area, tried the shot, cleared the bar though as we tick towards stoppage time. West Ham 0, Brentford 1.
Talk about Champions League football and the top 5 as it looks like it's going to be. That's a missed opportunity for Aston Villa against the 10 men of Ipswich Town. What a point though for Ipswich in their desperate attempt to stay in the Premier League. We're at walking pace here with Manchester City. We're inside the last 60 seconds of stoppage time. They're leading by 4-0. That Marmoush hat-trick in the first half, and then that fourth goal by McAtee. Reading 2, Rotherham United 1 is the latest score. How would you sum up this game then, Chris Sutton?
Manchester City have been far superior. This feels like a big result for them against a decent Newcastle team. The game in truth was over at half time, wasn't it? And Manchester City maybe taking the foot off the gas a bit in the second half, but I think defensively they've been really strong, and Kusanov has had a pretty solid game, had a bit of a nightmare of a debut, but he's been solid. A lot of positives, I think, for Pep's team.
Just for clarification, Motherwell 0, Ross County 3, Bristol Rovers 2, Burton Albion 1. Just in case your radio signal thought that you might have said something else. As there is the full-time whistle, and what an impressive performance it has been for Manchester City. A hat-trick from Marmoush, his first goals for the club in the first half, and then that late goal by McAtee and Newcastle United, their chastening afternoon against the champions. It's finished here, Manchester City 4, Newcastle United 0.